Well, hello, fellow theater enthusiasts. Welcome to the marvelous world of Broadway West. I'm your host, Marcus Lovingood, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Michelle Belmont. And we're absolutely thrilled to have you join us on this extraordinary adventure through the heart of downtown Los Angeles and its vibrant theater district. Today, we are coming to you live from the United Theater on Broadway. Now, before we bring out our amazing guest, Broadway West had the incredible opportunity to see the production of West Side Story at the LA Opera. And I, for one, haven't stopped singing Maria. Ever since. How about you, Michelle?
Oh, so beautiful.
And you're a coloratura soprano, too, so that's your...
Yes, that's my... I love Maria's songs.
Oh.
They're so beautiful.
I want to hear you sing
such
them.
a good job.
She did do a great job.
Don't make me sing. Marcus, don't make
right now,
me
come
sing.
On.
Yeah, having the... more of like a classical, as you know, my background is in more classical music. I haven't done it for a while, but it just gives you such an appreciation for the artistry that goes into operatic singing.
100%. It was really interesting that they did it at the LA Opera.
Yes.
They don't usually do Broadway there, right?
Yes. And I'm curious what you think. I know what my thoughts are about, because it is a tonal shift. It is a slightly different style. It's not your usual West Side Story. It was incredible. I think especially Duke Kim as Tony.
Oh, he was
blowing me
phenomenal.
away.
I loved him. And, you know, I wasn't quite sold at the beginning. I'm not going to lie. I was like, all right, he was a little,
like, I don't
wiggly.
believe that guy's been in a street fight.
Right. But
at
then
first.
At first, yes.
Yes.
But then he just kind of like grew on you, right?
Yeah.
It was just this beautiful softness about him that really fit for Tony, I think.
Yeah, I think his first song that I forgot the name of,
Something's Coming,
was when I was like, oh, I'm not sure.
Right.
But then when he did Maria, I was like, oh, no, I'm on board. I'm on board
and
with this.
that
100%.
voice.
So good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's interesting, like we said, hearing an operatic voice do those songs, because as intense of an art form it does sort of, in my opinion, I think limit the emotionality that you are
definitely
quote unquote
does.
allowed to put into your singing. So I think they were inhibited somewhat in that way, but it was still so powerful, especially powerful. Maria in that last moment. That's
right. The monologue.
So hard to do.
Right.
It's so hard to do, and she nailed it.
How many bullets are left,
Gabriela
How many bullets?
Reyes. Yes.
Ridiculous. So, I actually did West Side Story, 2 world tours of West Side Story before I was 25 years old. I performed it in many countries around the world. Yes, so I have thoughts, of course, about it. But in all, it was a joy.
Yeah.
It was a joy. We had great seats, too.
We had amazing seats.
And it was just right in the center. And thank you, LA Opera.
Yes, thank you,
nice
LA
of you.
Opera.
All right, so what was your opinion about the operatic voices in a show that's traditionally used as musical theater performance? You talked about it a minute ago, let's talk a little bit more about that.
I think I just know from, again, like training that way a little bit, is it's so rigid, and you have to stand a certain way and do your vowels a certain way.
And I saw that sometimes. I saw them, getting ready for it,
because they have in opera, traditionally, it's a little bit more like you stand and pose and sing, and in musical theater, you can't do that as well. So I saw them sort of fighting that training, but it did give a unique flavor to West Side Story that I had never seen before.
It did.
Yeah.
We traditionally, on my tour, we went to big cities like Vienna, we were in Paris, and we did actually have a more operatic direction for the Marias and the Tonys in particular. So I was really used to the operatic sort of feeling of it.
Yeah, because the style of the music calls for it.
Classical.
You can't get like a modern Broadway singer that can do those songs.
Right, some runs or anything.
Yeah, no, it's a completely different style.
Completely different style. So I thought it worked.
Yeah.
It really worked. But the leads were the strongest singers,
Mm-hmm.
Maria and Tony.
Yeah.
I can't say the same for the rest of the cast.
No, I know we talked about this a little bit. I think the strongest ensemble section was the Jets girls.
Oh, right.
Was
That's
their
interesting
ensemble.
too, right?
And I think I loved Anita, but I think I agree with you that her voice was really good in one song, and then there was another song that just didn't quite land
yeah,
right.
A Boy
in her-
Like That. It was
A Boy
just
Like
kind
That.
of right in that mix that I feel
it's
like
hard.
It's
It's a
very
hard
difficult.
song.
Yeah, it's very
because
hard.
you need to like punch it, and she emotionally was there.
Yeah.
But there were some parts that I was like, oh, I needed.
And I was a
more.
little. So the quintet, when everybody, the Jets are gonna have their day tonight, right? That moment is supposed to be this like buildup of tension, and everybody is just ready to kind of let loose and come alive. And I didn't quite feel it. I thought that it was just, maybe it was because we went the second day, right? And they were still
Maybe.
trying to get the kinks out.
Yeah.
But and we were pretty close. I just didn't feel the magnitude of that moment before everybody was about to, get into the knife fight, and they're,
Yeah. Yeah, I needed everyone to be a little scrappier, I think.
right.
Yeah. But so beautiful.
So beautiful,
But like
though.
I can't stay mad because
Oh my
it's
goodness.
so beautiful.
So what do you think of the production being set in modern day as opposed to the 1950s?
Ooh, I keep going back and forth on this
I know.
because I know we talked about Bad Bunny's poster in Maria's
Bad Bunny,
bedroom.
yes. Sotomayor on the wall.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I loved that because on the one hand, it does sort of make you reflect on how does the themes of this still apply to modern day, and you see these people groups that are hating on each other, and what does it take to end the fighting? Finally, it takes radical love and like the ridiculousness of love at first sight and wanting to kill yourself to be with that person. Like it takes that energy to stop the revenge cycle. However, I really didn't want to see that many skinny jeans and like fades.
There was a lot of skinny jeans.
Maria
was
really
wearing skinny
needed
jeans.
my high waisted and my
Yeah,
like
right.
slick back hair. Like
I know.
it's just such a the whole experience of West
The
Side Story is the
tattoos.
50s. Yeah.
You notice that? The fake tattoo?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they don't look fake, but
Yeah, but
They were
I was like,
covered
I
in
know
tats, the
musical
Jets.
theater people don't have that many tattoos.
they don't have that many tattoos. I was like,
Uh,
that's
yeah.
interesting.
So it was a choice. It was a conversation starter. Yeah, I did miss the 50s experience, but
Yeah.
I think it was ultimately smart given the state of the world.
Right.
we live in.
Oh, of course. Right. Absolutely. It kind of brought you in a
Mhm.
little more than being kind of a fly on the wall.
Right, yeah.
In essence, I loved the set.
Yes.
I thought the set was so
Seamless.
cool and
Yeah.
exactly seamless. It was very similar to what we had on tour. We had these two, like, 3 stories of fire escapes
Okay.
that were on both
Well, 'cause
sides.
that's
They
like-
would
that's like
come
the
in.
thing.
Yeah. And this was very similar, and I thought that was so beautiful. But then
Yeah.
they had Maria's bedroom that came out of the top.
Mhm.
And of course, when they brought it out, it got applause.
Yeah, 'cause
right? Like, wow.
So you did not have that. How did you do Maria's bedroom in your
It was just
production?
like rolled out from
On
a
the
wing.
floor, yeah.
So it was less
like,
impressive.
It was on the set and it turned around. And
It was
there
so neat. I was like, oh, now that's inventive.
It was really cool.
It was
Yeah.
so cool. I loved it. Ugh. So many things about this production that I really enjoyed. So what were the strengths and what were the weaknesses, would you say, as a whole?
Strengths were, I actually liked the diversity of the cast.
Yeah.
Body diversity and racial diversity was really, really
But
refreshing.
body diversity was so cool to see.
It was so cool.
I love that. I was like, yes, please.
Yes. Maria doesn't, no body shaming to
Right.
smaller bodies, but Maria doesn't always need to be a petite
Right.
little
Give me a
tiny
curvy
little-
lady all
Yes.
day long.
Loved
okay?
that.
100%.
Love that. And yeah, the set design, the voices, the training,
Mm-hmm.
all strengths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
I
let's go
think-
to the weaknesses.
I think the vocal training was also a weakness in some
Sure,
spots.
sure.
And I think setting in modern day was distracting in some areas, but like I said, it was a good conversation starter.
Oh, 100%.
So I'm gonna waffle and be like, it was kind of a weakness.
So for me, strengths, like we said, I thought that the singing of the leads was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that Maria's monologue at the end
So good.
took me there.
Yeah.
Even though I had heard it 400 times, I was part of it. It took me there. I understudied Chino, by the way, so I understand the stakes in that scene. And our director wanted us to be there every night, and so we went there every night. And it's very difficult. To. The subject of the scene is just very, very hard.
I mean, it's effectively like secondhand trauma almost.
Right. And they were so great. I felt it. And Maria was really, really strong there. I thought it was great. The sets were great. Now, the weaknesses.
Yes, tell us, Marcus, as the resident West Side Story experts.
So, it's original Jerome Robbins choreography. I have to congratulate Josh Bergasse, who was the choreographer for this show in particular, for doing almost to the T original choreography. Like it's very hard to do because you have to learn it first and then you have to be able to teach it. Now, the choreography is very hard, and I was expecting a lot. And it didn't quite get there. I thought that Cool was a little sloppy. Those knee spins are very hard, but this is Broadway. This is they need to be perfect.
Yeah.
The arms were, at the beginning during the prologue, the intro. There's a moment where it's a very iconic moment where all the jets are flying, like they're jumping in the air and their arms are going like this, and you're supposed to be like 2-3 feet off the ground, and they were like
they were just like skipping around.
Yeah. I was like, you're supposed to be jets,
Yeah.
But that was something that I thought was weak, was the choreography, and there was a lot of choreography in that show.
Yeah, and it was really cool sitting next to you being actually an expert on the choreography, because I was getting like the behind the scenes and the like lore. Like I didn't know that choreographer's choreography was the choreography that you have to do
Jerome Robbins,
in order to put up this production.
Professionally.
And that's not something, I mean, there were some songs that I was like, oh, I feel like that was a little sloppy, but I don't have like the eye for dance like you do. So it's really cool to hear your perspective live there too.
I'm glad I could enhance the show any way I could. But all in all, I thought it was a very strong performance. I stood up at the end. It got a standing ovation. And I will tell you,
well-deserved.
And that audience loved it. I mean, they loved the show. I was sitting next to a retired CFO for the LA Opera and her husband, and they were just they were overjoyed by it. So
yeah, it was really cool at intermission to hear just all the conversations going around us, just agog.
It was neat.
Yes,
it's always fun to see Bad Bunny in a show too,
yeah,
even if he's just in a poster.
I loved that. I actually loved that.
Everyone loves Bad Bunny.
I was like, of course Maria would be a fan.
Of course,
of
right?
Course. Why wouldn't she?
Well, this is always so much fun, Michelle. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Of course.
And we'll see you next time.
We'll do it next time.
So we are here at the Majestic United Theater, probably one of my favorites on Broadway. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce the general manager at the United Theater, Serena. Serena, welcome to the Broadway West podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and welcome to the United Theater.
Oh, it is so beautiful.
It's gorgeous. She's a special little gem.
Is it just so much fun coming to work every day?
It is. It's not a bad office to have.
I can't imagine. Just coming and sitting in here every so often.
Clear your head, get away from your computer, just sit down, stare at the ceiling for a second.
and just disappear into another world, right?
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and we're going to talk about this great theater. How do you sell this stunning historic Spanish Gothic setting as kind of like the perfect backdrop for like a modern event?
Let's just say I think that the space itself does a lot of the heavy lifting.
It does.
I mean, she's breathtaking.
Breathtaking.
But it certainly takes a team to sort of, make it come alive for a modern event. I brought on a private event sales manager earlier in the year, Ricky Hayes, who has a deep appreciation for the history of the building, but also works really great with our, tech and operations team to create one-of-a-kind experiences for everything.
Ricky's great.
He's great.
He's so great.
I mean, I think we can all attest to the fact that working in a historic venue definitely has challenges.
Of course.
But I think that we've figured out a way to navigate those very gracefully so that every event not only feels like it fits seamlessly into this space, but also feels like it was meant to be here from the beginning.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I'm sure it makes people feel just so magnificent when they walk in too, no matter what the event, right?
It's an amazing surrounding just to be.
I know the vibe in here is just
It's a good
so
one.
cool. Like in the bathrooms, it's like so incredible.
Yeah.
I just love it. Even the bathrooms are beautiful. All right. Which events are you attracting that channel the original rebellious spirit of founders like Chaplin and Pickford, like the old ones?
It's funny. I don't think that anything today can really mimic the boldness of what
Right.
Pickford and Chaplin
gosh.
built here. But I think that their spirit still sort of guides what we do. We're really leaning into kind of bringing the theater back to its cinematic roots. Doing, classic cinema with live performance, screenings with a live orchestra or band.
Oh, I love those. Those
One
are
of my
so
faves.
cool. Oh
Yeah,
my
and so we're
gosh.
kind of leaning into that thing. Just that, it used to be a flagship film house.
Yeah.
So we're going back to our roots and kind of doing it with a twist.
I actually sat second row right here for Get Out.
Oh, that is one of my favorites we've done.
Oh my gosh.
We have an agreement with LA Opera. We do something every Halloween with them. It's one of my favorites, that we do. I look forward to it every year.
That was so much fun.
This year we have Phantom of the Opera
Oh.
on the 30th and 31st. It's going to be phenomenal. I'm really excited about it.
Those are so cool, putting the orchestra to the movie. Like,
It's a super fun, immersive experience,
It
know?
so
And I think
is.
that everybody should experience that.
and if you can sit close, like that's my favorite, to be close to a big old orchestra, because they
You
feel
feel
the
it.
music. coming out,
100%.
right?
And with Get Out, the vocals, too, were just
oh, they were just so great.
so good.
I loved it. And we want to do a whole lot of those, at Broadway West, in addition to, theater and all that. But, why not? These are old movie houses.
Exactly.
Bringing those two together is just so amazing. My favorite. All right, so how will you utilize this theater's dramatic atmosphere, like the shimmering ceiling, to host unforgettable high impact events?
Well, and perhaps kind of where that rebellious spirit comes in is in the variety of the things that we do here, right? We do everything from concerts to screenings to comedy shows to live podcasts to unforgettable, gorgeous special events. And they really can transform the space itself. And so that's kind of what we're leaning into in terms of creating one-of-a-kind events that transform the space and, seeing the historic theater reinventing itself on a nightly basis.
Oh, yeah. That's
You
so
know?
exciting. And you have a special stage, right? This is a hydraulic stage, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we have the lift. The apron goes up and down. When we have a smaller orchestra, we can certainly utilize that. When we have large orchestras, like for LA Opera,
Right.
they tend to be on stage or split it. But yeah, we definitely have the access to do that.
That's really special. Not all the stages on Broadway have that.
Yeah.
So that's so cool.
It is
That
pretty
so
fun.
neat. Yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun. So what fundamental message do you want the community to understand about the current identity of the United Theater on Broadway?
I think that this place has been sort of a cultural hub for the community for almost 100 years, right?
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree.
And so we understand the importance of honoring that. And so we want to continue to be a place where the community gathers to have big discussions, to come and see our favorite artists or musicians, and create some of those unforgettable memories. We just want to keep it going and make it last another 100 years.
Of course. And it's really special that you're connected to a hotel, right? I mean, that's so
crazy. It sort of makes
awesome.
us the unicorn.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of my favorite things about it. And it has like a rooftop bar and all that fun stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where our goal is now moving forward, is to sort of not just sell the United Theater as a venue, but as the property, right? That's what, again, it's what makes us special. There are not a ton of historic venues that are attached to a modern hotel or a beautiful rooftop bar. So we're really working with Somewhere Special, who's the operator of the rooftop bar style hotel, to create one-of-a-kind packages to utilize the entire property. It's something that we're really excited about, and Style is going under a large renovation in Q1 of next year. So a lot of exciting things going on here right now.
You just replaced the carpet. It looks
did.
beautiful.
Thank you. It was very stressful. I mentioned that to you.
Right.
That was so stressful. Like, what if you picked the wrong thing for this beautiful historic venue and then you're just stuck with it?
Yeah, but it's gorgeous.
It worked out.
It fits so well.
Thank you.
I
I
just
think so
love it.
too. I feel like it really pulls the room together.
100%. So when I was in Barcelona, one of my favorite architects is Gaudi. And the architecture in this theater, for one, it's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
But two, it really reminds me of that Gothic European, almost like covered in candle wax, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is your favorite part about the theater and the architecture?
It's hard to say, but I will say
There's
that
lots of things, right?
so many things. But I've worked in this building since 2017. And to this day, I'm still finding something new that I never saw before.
I'm sure.
Which is actually like one of the coolest parts about it.
Yeah.
But I do love the fact that rumor has it that Mary Pickford wanted all the mirrors tinted gold because she was, I believe, from up north, like in Toronto.
Sure.
And whenever her family and friends came to visit, she wanted them to feel like they had a sun-kissed glow like she did. So all the mirrors are tinted gold. And I'm like, that is so extra. It's so good. I love it so much.
I think I should live by that rule, right?
I kind of want them all in my house.
All of my mirrors in my house must be gold.
That's
must
what
be.
I'm saying. She was great.
She was great. That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having us, and thank you so much for being part of Broadway West. And we're so excited to be working with you on, further activating this amazing space.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming to see us and being partners.
So earlier, we had a lot of fun talking about the incredible history and the upcoming events of the United Theater with Serena. Now, it's time to talk about the technical elements of the theater on Broadway in downtown Los Angeles. So I'm joined by Sara, our newest board member at Broadway West and a part of our architectural team, joining us today. Welcome,
Yes.
Sara.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here.
So we're going to get her thoughts on the current state of the theaters here and kind of what it takes to have a fully activated Broadway West. Thank you so much for being here again.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Fabulous. All right. So Broadway was once a bustling theater and entertainment district, and its theaters have gone through many changes throughout the years. Can you tell us a bit more about the history and evolution of these historic theaters along Broadway and the surrounding Bronx?
Yeah, of course. So, back in the early 1900s, like 1910 or so, is when they first started building some of these theaters up. And through the 1920s and 30s, they got pretty much all of these activated theaters. A lot of what you see now was built in that time period. Some of them started as vaudeville houses.
Right.
And so there was that function. And then a lot of them were then converted to movie palaces. So they were all these movie palaces that kind of created this central like entertainment district in downtown. So it used to be not really Hollywood that was the center of entertainment in LA. It was Broadway.
So you said that they started as vaudeville houses. They didn't start as movie theaters,
Not
right?
all of them. So specifically, I think it's the State and the Palace were the two that were the vaudeville houses.
Got it.
And so you'll see a difference like in the stages of those spaces because they're doing theatrical performances. Vaudeville's a lot different than modern day theatrical performances, but still you'll see a little bit more robust stage areas and things like that because of the vaudeville.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then
Got
movie
it.
palaces, obviously, you're not using for theatrical performances, so they're a little different, and we'll get into that more. But so then I guess through the 1920s and 30s, bustling, happening spot for all of the entertainment in Los Angeles. Then after World War II, there was kind of a decline in all of that, and a lot of stuff did end up moving to Hollywood and then into the suburbs, into modern day theaters like we see now. And so a lot of the theaters no longer acted as movie palaces, and they actually started doing Spanish language movies and like different acts in the theaters during that time period after World War II. And then in the 80s, they started kind of becoming different functionality because of the inability to use them as movie palaces and theaters. And so that's when, despite a lot of attempts to try to renovate and restore, they started converting into retail spaces or flea markets or churches. There's a lot of churches.
A lot of churches.
And so at that time, a lot of the theaters got renovated, a lot of the seating got pulled out. And so you'll see a lot of the theaters are in very different states of the theater ability at this point. Some of them still have their seats, like $1 Million, and obviously United is a beautiful theater and has always been this type of theater. At one point, and we'll get into that, it was a church, but it's always had its seating. And so there's a lot of different various levels of like where each of the theaters in the Broadway district are at this point in time. And so a lot of them need different levels of renovation to get to be able to actually house performances and movies again. So depends.
Right, so you got like the Globe that doesn't have any seats. You have
Right.
like the Mayan and the Belasco, right? Those are
Right.
like the main three that don't have
Exactly.
any
And
seats.
so you'll
right?
see a lot of those, they get used for different types of live performances. And a lot of times it's music related because people like to stand
Like to
usually
stand.
during a show.
Yeah.
Little harder to have someone go to a play or something
Sure.
and stand the whole
Or
time.
like a Studio 54 club,
Yeah.
right? I love that.
I know, so fun. And there is still opportunity for places that don't have seats, and if they want to stay a flat floor kind of venue, you can still bring in loose seats, and it kind of creates flexibility, more like a black box or a studio theater type space instead of a fixed seating theater type space.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's so much potential, right?
There's a lot of potential. And I mean, the theater community is so creative and adaptable. So I feel like really you can take any of these theaters and do what you want to do with it from a theatrical standpoint. Obviously, there's limitations. But if you are creative enough, you can make it happen.
100%. And that's our job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The sky's the limit. So, now knowing a bit more about our Broadway theaters specifically, it'd be great to take a step back and better understand the theater topology and the different types of theaters and performance spaces. Can you talk a bit more broadly about the different theater designs and how the layout and architecture affect the function and, say, programming of a theater?
Yeah, no problem. So I kind of mentioned that the theaters along Broadway, a lot of them were vaudeville theaters, and they were movie palaces. And so the layout of the stage is different than what your typical proscenium theater or a theater where essentially there's a proscenium wall that separates the audience from the stage. And those are the types of theaters used for dramatic plays and musicals and that type of stuff. And they have a stage house with a fly tower. Usually the fly tower is like 80 feet tall. There's also modified flies, which are shorter, but still functionality-wise can do the same stuff.
And that brings like a set piece up into the rafters,
Yeah,
right?
so
And
the
brings
fly
it down.
tower is meant for flying the backdrops or set pieces, large props. You also hang lighting from it. So It requires a bunch of what's called rigging, and that's all controlled throughout the performance so that they can quickly move things in and out and fly it, which is why it's called a fly tower.
There you go.
In and out of the
There
space.
we go. Awesome.
And so, yeah, any type of theater built for that type of performance, like I said, dramatic plays or musicals, opera, that kind of stuff, needs to have a fly tower and some kind of rigging to accommodate all of that stuff. And usually you have some more floor or stage depth, so you have more space in the stage to accommodate more what they call line sets up in the space for all the rigging. So the line sets are, each line set would house a backdrop or a prop or whatever it might be.
Those are pretty common, right,
Yeah.
in theater, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of I feel like the theater type that a lot of people have been to if they've seen some type of musical or play. And then there's concert halls, which are specifically made for music. And so those you have a very different type of stage and even potentially a different type of seating layout. And so those you can even have seating all the way around. You have a much smaller stage. You don't need all the rigging because you're just doing musical performance. So there's a lot of different features of that type of stage and that type of theater. And it used to be that usually when you're building a performing arts center or space, you're building your proscenium theater, you're building your separate concert hall, and maybe some smaller scale studio theaters and black boxes for more like avant-garde type performances, smaller scale performances. Now, a lot of times we get asked to do multifunctional theaters that can kind of do it all.
Do it all, right.
Because of budgets and lack of space and a bunch of different reasons, mostly money.
Yeah, of course.
So there's
Always the
ways
issue.
to make a theater do all of it. And it usually has to do with adding extra equipment, like an orchestra shell can get added to this proscenium, and that helps with the acoustics for an orchestra performing. And so it can be more like a concert hall. You can also add like adjustable acoustics, which help change the amount of absorption in the space. So you can bring more absorption in when you need it, and then if it's a different type of performance, you can take it out. So there's ways to make theaters very flexible and be able to accommodate a lot of different stuff.
These theaters on Broadway mostly have prosceniums.
Yeah, so the
Right.
theaters on Broadway are a little different because they are proscenium theaters in that they have the proscenium wall, and most of them have a fly tower to some extent. But because they weren't built to do large scale productions, theatrical productions, they were built to be movie palaces
Got
or
it.
do vaudeville. So they often have shallower stages and kind of limited rigging capability. And then the loading situation is kind of lacking, unfortunately.
That is a
and
little
so
lacking.
that's something that's a little bit different about these type of movie palace vaudeville theaters. But there's a lot of ways, like I said, to be creative with them and make them work. And having these beautiful prosceniums is amazing. And
It's
so
so amazing.
it creates so much theatricality in a really great space.
It really does.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, can you talk a bit more about the theaters along Broadway and the potential opportunity for activating and programming in theaters that are less functional or aren't currently in operation at all? And what types of upgrades and renovations are really necessary? And what would it take to bring these theaters back to their former glory?
Yeah, no problem. So, as I mentioned, there's kind of a lot of different a lot of the theaters are like different levels of disrepair or functionality based on how many renovations they've had over the years. But most of them do need some type of architectural upgrades when it comes to accessibility and making sure that people with disabilities can still have the same type of experience as every other patron
Use the bathroom,
attending.
right?
Exactly.
I mean, all the bathrooms are in the basement.
Yeah, a lot of the
Without any-
bathrooms are in the basement. So
Yeah.
that's a tricky one, but something that would be totally necessary to really get the full use out of these spaces from a patron standpoint. Gorgeous lobbies, though, and most
beautiful.
of them. And so those are great. A lot of the seating in a lot of the theaters is old and needs to be updated.
Totally.
It's very tiny, and we've grown
Yes.
in general
As people.
as people. It's kind
It's
of
true.
interesting. You'll go into some of these theaters and the widths of the seats actually vary because you need to create a stagger for sight lines.
Right.
So not all the seats are the same width, but some of these old theaters will have very narrow, like 16-inch. Now that's not even allowed. And
Right.
the smallest you go is like 20, 21 inches wide. So
Sure.
yeah. So that's
We're a little
big
more
one
fed
is-
these
yeah,
days,
a
I will
little bit more
say.
fed.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and so then the other stuff is, I mean, it's related to the ability to do different types of theatrical performances, and so rigging upgrades. Some of them have had some rigging upgrades, some of them haven't. AV and technology upgrades, depending on what types of, again, performances want to be done, and then. There's also things like if you want to do a lot of orchestral performances or have these situations where you have an orchestra, it's nice to have a lift for the orchestra.
It is,
like
yeah.
the United is great because it has this awesome orchestra lift, and so you can either have a stage extension like what is going on right now, where you get extra 4-stage area for performance. But if you have an orchestra, it can lower down to the level of the audience or lower. I think this just goes down to the level of the audience, but a lot of orchestras go down even lower. Orchestra pits go down lower. And so that's a really helpful thing, not necessary. You can get creative, put the musicians on the stage or things like that. But
I love that look.
yeah,
The musicians
it
on
is
the
really
stage.
fun. It
Very
gives you
Les
less
Mis.
space for other things, but if you're doing a movie or something like that and you have enough space with the screen, that works great.
But even like I've seen a lot of concert musicals
Mm-hmm.
where the orchestra is on stage, the cast sits on the stage, and they just stand up and walk up to microphones, and it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, it works great.
It works so well.
It's really about production design at that
Yeah.
point. And so you can really accommodate a lot of different stuff, even if it's not the perfect ideal setting for it. You can still do it by being creative about production design and kind of where you have the actors performing and that kind of stuff. So I think luckily we have these really great backdrops for these theaters, and there's a lot of ways to upgrade them to make them work well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think some of the other functionality stuff is like control rooms, which is where they
Sure.
handle all the audio and lighting. And so that's something that's usually at the back of the theater. These are all movie palaces for the most part, so they have projection rooms. So that kind of helps because that can be used as a control room
Oh, totally.
for newer stuff. And a lot of them, you kind of see some makeshift lighting positions and things like that. There's not as many catwalks up above because we have these gorgeous ceilings.
right.
But you can see they're hanging trusses down. And there's even up in the dome here some light positions that they've added. So that stuff helps with all the doing more theatrical performances as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You kind of have to work with what you got here, right?
Exactly.
But
you
yeah,
figure
this-
it out.
It's beautiful, right? I mean,
Exactly.
you figure it out, just like you had said. So we're currently sitting in the beautiful United Theater, one of the theaters along Broadway that has undergone major renovations and has become a very active and well-programmed space on the street. Can you talk a little more about the history of this theater and its evolution into what it is now?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, this theater was built in 1927, and it's actually pretty cool. It was part of the United Artists' first theater movie palaces that they created. And the United Artists, I think a lot of people know, but Mary Pickford, Charlie Chaplin, and a few other people started that as a production distribution company so that they had more artistic control of their films.
Of course.
And so they actually, this theater, along with two others, all came out, launched in the same year, or opened in the same year. So there's also Chicago and Detroit that had theaters, new movie palaces come up as part of the United Artists
Okay.
movie palace.
Kind of like
And
the
so-
Pantages, but United Artists. Like,
Right.
Kind of like the string of theaters, right?
Right, exactly, where they're all related to that specific company.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this was functioning as that movie palace for the United Artists for a really long time, and then and I think it was in the 1990s. It was sold to a church or acquired by a church, and so for a long time, it housed church services and was the headquarters for a church. And then finally, just not too long ago, in the last decade, in 2012, it was acquired by the Ace Hotel Group, and they converted it into the hotel, essentially the functionality that it is now, which was hotel on top, and then this beautiful theater that's used for all kinds of different events, movies still, which is great, but also comedy shows and even small-scale theatrical performances.
Sure.
And a bunch of different stuff. I know I've seen multiple music concerts here, which have been great. So it's a really like multifunctional kind of space, and it's really fun to come and see shows here. So
I can't wait to program our own here.
I know.
In all honesty.
Me too.
So what are some of the challenges in bringing these historic theaters up to current theatrical rigging / equipment standards and kind of making them functional for modern day theatrical performances?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about like what it will take and what these need, and some of the limitations are definitely like we have a lot of historic architecture to deal with, and we have limited stage space, which limits how much you can do with rigging and different types of shows. But again, there's ways to work around that. One of the biggest challenges is probably the loading, and so it does kind of limit the ability to do road shows or touring shows because of
Got it.
loading into access to loading. Ideally, you have a loading yard and you have direct access onto stage, and you aren't blocking any major streets, so you don't have to shut down a street when you do a load-in, because load-ins can take up to, depending on the size of the show, up to 2-3 days. So
Right.
so you really have to have kind of a separate space for that process. And so I think that somewhat limits the kind of scale and scope of like large productions for a lot of the theaters because of the loading access. But you can still, like we've talked about, you can get creative and you can do productions that are maybe a little smaller scale, but still the big shows just in a different way. And it's often kind of
Yeah.
fun to see shows in that context and have someone really coming up against some of the limitations and using those to their
Totally.
advantage of the show and doing something more creative and interesting.
And
So-
build in.
Yeah.
Instead of, touring shows, you have to build in the theater.
Exactly.
As opposed.
And that's actually a really good point, is because of the loading issue, building in the spaces is kind of what you need to do. It takes more time because then you're using the stage, so it limits some event use. But some of these theaters have adjacent spaces that could be scene shops and things like that. If you can get a loading path up to the stage from a scene shop space, you could use that space to build sets, and you could use
Totally.
it to store things. And so depending on the theater itself, it kind of will take a lot of different variety of upgrades, and depending on the use that you want to use it for in the long run. But overall, there's a lot of opportunity.
Especially this theater has a parking lot right next to it. So
Yeah.
hypothetically, if we were to do a little magic, we could have a load-in for this theater.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the loading situation. I was like, this is actually one of the best loading situations out of
Right.
any of the theaters, because there's an alleyway, and there's some loading, well, what look like they could be loading doors. I'm not quite sure if they are.
be.
But there's a little more opportunity for that. And even if you were to build a building in that parking lot, which could happen, there's still this alleyway. You don't get the direct back up into the stage house, which is obviously ideal, but there's still opportunity for loading.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Gosh, I can talk to you about this for hours,
I know, it's
Sarah. I wish we had more time.
I could talk way too long about it and bore everybody. But
No, this is so exciting. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
course.
And, the work that you're doing is so important to our vision over here at Broadway West. It's so exciting to envision a future where all these theaters on Broadway are activated and filled with people and,
I know.
downtown life.
It'd be so amazing.
I know, it's going to be
Can't
so
wait.
great. Well, thank you for joining us on the Broadway West podcast and this unforgettable night. And we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.